All right. Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rock'em Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to May. It's going to be May. Is there a whole lot going on in Missouri football? No. No, there's not. Are we going to do a live show about it anyway? Yes. Yes, we are. Because that's just the type of people we are. We want to make you happy, the listener. Nathan Hurst, what's new? How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. The students are gone from here in Columbia, and I know that you know that as a former Columbia native. It always is a much nicer time around town when the students get out. We love the students; they're great, they're awesome. But it's also nice to be able to drive down the road and not get what little traffic Columbia usually has is now gone. So it's a good time.
Yeah. I remember in high school, you would just not go downtown during when school was in session. Well, if you wanted to like go to a restaurant or go to a bar or whatever. No, I was not going to a bar at 16. Stop asking questions. But that's where my weed dealer was. Oh my God, Nate, stop. But no, it's very quiet. It's almost ghost townish when you get into summer in Columbia downtown, which is great. If you want to go Gumby's, this is the time to do it, man. So many fewer drunk people laying around. So that's the time to do it. But au revoir, students. I hope you're great. I hope you enjoy summer school if you're sticking around. Hope you come back for next year as long as you haven't graduated. Obviously, Rock M has graduated a few people this year. We got Cortai Vincent and Parker Gillum got their fancy degrees, saying that they learned a lot of knowledge and can go out into the workforce if they so choose. So we will miss them dearly. But congratulations to both of them for being super smart and getting your degree, and at the same time writing for our funny little pirate ship of a website. So kudos to them. I was actually driving through Columbia on Saturday. It's going down to Jefferson City, our state capital, for a family reunion. And on the way down, St. Louis to Columbia, hello, traffic. Hello, everybody on the road. On the way back, way easier. But yeah, it was a good graduation weekend for everybody there. So let's scrounge up some football news. We can talk about stuff. We can do that. We're professionals. I guess we'll start with the transfers, right? Mizzou missed out on a few transfers. I know that there was a hullabaloo around TCU defensive tackle Demonic Williams, I think is how we say it. He was very highly sought after. If you were a lineman, either offensive or defensive lineman of any caliber, any quality starting caliber, everybody wants you, including the Blue Bloods. So he did not end up at Mizzou. But I guess, Nathan Hurst, I think you and I have two different viewpoints of the football team right now. What were your initial reactions when you heard Mr. Williams was not taking his talents to Columbia, Missouri?
I mean, I think it was initial disappointment just because he's a very talented player. It's Dominic, by the way. It's spelled uniquely, but I believe it is pronounced Dominic Williams. Really good player. He was an all-freshman, Big 12 all-freshman team his freshman year. He was first or second team all Big 12 last year as a sophomore. So really talented player. So anytime you have a chance to get one of those guys and don't, that's going to be disappointing. But it sounds like it took a whole lot of money to get him to go ultimately to Oklahoma, where he ended up. Congrats, Sooner fans. It looks like you're not poor after all. But when it gets into like a bidding war like that, and it's clear that the guy's going to go wherever he gets paid the most money, good for him. If that's his priority, to get that money while you can. But is that going to necessarily be the best guy to, coming in for the vibes, for the locker room feel? Maybe not. I don't know his character at all. But it's probably it's certainly not a devastating blow by any means. We're really looking. We've talked about this for the last several months. Honestly, especially after the first transfer portal window, we really didn't need anything, right? We were looking for depth. Would be great to add depth anywhere. The defensive line was a spot where we talked about possibly wanting to add some depth, but it was we have guys that can start at this level. We probably have one or two guys behind them that can play at this level as well. So it wasn't like one of those have-to-haves that we lost out on. Just a talented player that chose to go somewhere else, and that happens all the time, both transfer recruiting and prep recruiting. So disappointment, but whatever. We'll move on to the next guy.
Yeah, I just from a team standpoint, I really think we're good, and I know our party line has been just, if there's someone out there that makes sense, do it. And I know Eli Drinkwitz has said multiple times, like, we're never going to sit on our roster and say we're good. We are always going to vet. We're always going to scout. We're always going to look for opportunities to bring in somebody who can help us win now, which is a nebulous term on purpose. Because if you didn't bring him in, then he wasn't going to help you win. Haha, you get an out. That's great. I don't feel like this team needs anything. And I know those are famous last words, but if you're looking specifically at the defensive line right now, I have been the guy that says that the secret sauce of Missouri's defensive success for the past 2 years were the fact that they could rotate 4 defensive linemen on the interior with 0 drop-off. That was it. It wasn't heralded. You didn't see the stats, but if you took, Jaden Jernigan and Rialis George, Ray Jernigan, or whatever you want to call him, and you put him as one guy, that was a hell of a defensive tackle right there. Same if you took Josh Landry and Christian Williams and smashed them into one. It was awesome. Now they just rotated a lot. So I understand that you need to add another guy, probably one more guy. But let's just go over it real quick. We know Chris McClellan is a freaking stud, right? He showed it at Florida. Florida was very sad to lose him. Everybody in the country wanted him. We know that's a good addition. He's probably starting day one. We've already seen Christian Williams for 2 years. Now we've seen him next to, Rialis George, Jaden Jernigan, Josh Landry, who are not here. I understand that. But we're all assuming he's a stud too. We've also know that Sterling Webb tore it up at New Mexico State. What does that translate well to SEC? I don't know. Ask Auburn. How they did against New Mexico State and Sterling Webb. I think he did pretty good. So that's 3. That's 3 right there. Now, is a mixture of, just pick one. Just pick one between Marquise Gracial, former 4-star, Sam Williams, a redshirt freshman, Jalen Marshall, stud out of Overland Park, and then who's the freshman? Justin Bodford out of Fort Lauderdale. Do you think one of those guys can contribute? Do you think all of them can contribute? If the answer is yes to either one of those, I'm not concerned. And, I don't know if anyone else out there is, but that's where I stand. I think Williams would have been a luxury where everyone else could kind of, didn't have to step up. And I really don't think they do now, but it's just 3 instead of 4 confirmed, and you got a bunch of options to pick from. Am I crazy?
No, do we need someone? As I said, no, we don't. The team, the roster as it is right now, is good. We're good. I think probably the guys that you listed off as that, who's going to be the 4th option. Gracial's probably the best bet, just based on the fact that he's been in the program. Now this will be his 3rd year. He's been acclimated. The other guys are young, not that Gracial's played at all, but at least he's spent 2 full years in the strength and conditioning program, and was highly touted out of high school. That won't get you very far until you actually get on the field, but I'd put my money on him. So do we need somebody? No, I think we're good. We've talked about this though, on the lines, both sides of the line. You never turn away a really good trench player, or even a pretty good guy that can give you 10 snaps a game, at least on the defensive end. You wouldn't necessarily do that on the offense, but you're never going to turn away a guy that can give you some snaps, whether they're elite snaps, game wrecking snaps, or that'd be great. We've got some guys that can, Sterling Webb, as you mentioned, has wrecked games before at a different level, but he's done it before. So we've got guys that might be able to do that. It's that kind of that 4th guy, that 5th guy, where you'd be looking to fill a spot, and that guy's probably taking 10, 15, 20 snaps a game, keeps the other guys fresh, but also isn't going to get blown off the ball and give up a 12, 15-yard run right through his gap. So, yeah, I think we're okay. There's missed out on another defensive lineman as well. Simeon Barrow was another guy from Michigan State that a lot of folks were after. I don't think we were quite down to his final 2, 3, 4 like we were with Williams, But he was another guy that we were certainly offering, and I'm sure had some money lined up for him if he chose to come here.
Sure.
But those are luxury ads. I mean, it's great to be in a position where adding an all Big 12 player is a luxury and not a must have. It's great to be in that position.
Yeah. It's just eating snaps, and I think we got the guys to do that. So I'm not super worried. But you know, you always want to add somebody that everybody wants. I do wonder how much the money played into it. Anytime you lose a bidding war, I feel like the coaches will come out and say, I mean, not overtly, but like, we really want to trust, our locker room culture. We really want to, bank on our development. And which is just a fancy way of saying we weren't going to pay what he was asking for.
Or couldn't. I mean,
Or
Brian
couldn't.
Kelly, he's who Brian Kelly was talking about this past week when he had him, and I think both him and Barrow, because LSU was in on both of those guys too, just like we were. And he was talking about them, not in specifics, but saying that we were not going to buy players. Now, of course, they're going to buy players. They're going to buy any player they can and have the money for.
Yeah.
They obviously didn't either have the money. I'm sure they probably did if they really wanted to, or didn't think he was worth it in this specific instance. But that's who he was kind of subtweeting, if you will.
Yeah. And it's like you got a damage control, so I get it. No one's going to believe it, but you don't need to believe it. You just need to go out there and say it. You got to put it out there and project confidence, or the stock has never been higher. Buy. Like just whatever. It's nonsense, and that's you don't worry about what coaches say about that. Here's my question though. It feels like we're only a handful of years into this transfer portal thing, and really 1 year into the winter stop, spring stop, right? Where there's an actual cutoff of deadlines. From a gamesmanship standpoint, from an agency standpoint, for the players, right? It's almost that, it's last call and you're the last two in the room. I wonder how much price of the brick goes up the later into the portal you go. If you hit the portal in the winter and, teams are still kind of waiting to see who's out there, still not totally sure what's going to happen to their roster. I don't know if you could get away with $1 million asking price, even if you are a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman, right? I don't know if you can, because the market is it's unstable. And ever growing, and your worth could go up, your worth could go down, but there's so much time afterwards. Then you get to the spring, and this is the last opportunity to hit it, and this is the last opportunity to add. If you're a team, I wonder how much that price goes up because of an urgency. And so now I'm wondering, Nathan Hurst, this is my point. Now I'm wondering if the elites wait it out. Either they declare in winter and don't make a decision until middle of May. I know obviously there's school function to this that you have to play a part. I understand that, but I wonder if kids start seeing that the people who go in the spring get way more money, or at least hear that, and so they start holding out and waiting. Which, my God, if you want to wreck rosters even further, that would be just a further plunge of the knife. I don't know. I'm just kind of riffing here off the top of my head. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that there's a few different things to consider there. I think that there's certainly a possibility that could happen in a lot of instances. There's got to be some specifics though. First and foremost, it would have to be someone that's coming from we'll split Power 4 now up or really Power 2. We'll call it Power 2 with Ohio, with Big 10 and SEC, and then we've got everybody else. Okay.
Yeah.
And this isn't necessarily applied to the Big 10 because they don't have the same rule. But in the spring portal window, the SEC does not allow transfers between SEC schools.
Right.
So it would have to be someone like I can't even say his name, Williams from TCU, who's coming from a Big 12 team into the SEC or the Big 10, where he doesn't have to deal with restrictions on where he's going, but he knows he's going to a place that's going to have the money to pay for him. If it was somebody like coming from LSU, coming from Alabama, going somewhere else, I guess they could go to the Big 10 and get go, like a Caleb Downs going to Ohio State. Now he went in the winter portal, so it's not the perfect one for one there. So it would have to be, but it'd probably be someone coming from either a half step down or a G5 level down coming up, like a Marcus Bryant, for example. Now, Bryant actually went in the portal in the winter and just didn't commit for a long time. But that probably ended up being smart for him because, as you said, a lot of the other high level transfer offensive linemen already committed. Then he's left out there as the top rated guy left. He wasn't the top rated guy ever to go into the portal this year. That was Caden Green, who we already got, also got, by the way. But he stuck it out. He waited a couple months. Didn't have to do spring practice at wherever he was, which was probably nice. Which means he knew he was going to come out of there. Now maybe he's not in the same shape, which he'll have to make up for this summer. But he's got time to do that. But he's going to come out of there healthy. He's not going to have someone roll up on his knee or anything. Doesn't have to do that. And then fast forward from January to March, January to April, all of a sudden, whoa, I'm the highest rated tackle in the portal. Now let's go shopping for or shop my services around and make good money there. So I think he's a great example of doing that, entering in early, sticking it out. Now there's certainly some risk to that. If a bunch of other guys do the same thing and they're also highly rated, then that money can go away pretty fast. If it gets spent on other people before you decide to commit. One thing I've kind of thought about schedules as far as when to from the team side as opposed to the player side. You see, teams, you'll have a relatively big name running back or receiver or offensive lineman come in to the portal in January, and teams will scramble and gobble that guy up and maybe spend a good deal of their NIL budget on one or two players. But then a couple of weeks later, like somebody even better comes into that you didn't expect comes in the portal, and all of a sudden you spent all your money on a guy who isn't quite as good. So I'm starting to wonder if down the road teams start slowing the process down, wait till everyone is in the portal and they can see the full gamut of options before they start giving away money. So both sides are filling this thing out.
Yeah.
I don't know I really don't know where it's going, because a lot of it depends on if we end up with any kind of a revenue sharing agreement, which maybe, if that's the case, might restrict the transfer portal more than it is now. Because if that's the case, then you probably start seeing contracts being signed and which would limit players being able to leave if they've signed the contract. So that's a whole other can of worms. But I think for at least for the next couple of years, we're stuck with this specific model, and it's only gonna it's gonna change. It does not look like it did last year, and next year it's not gonna look like it did this year.
It's not. And you're the thing you're touching on there is kind of a little bit of a prisoner's dilemma, right? Because you got to bank on no one else moving first. The second someone moves is the second everybody else moves. And so if you're going to sit back and wait to get the full view of the portal, there is no one view of the portal, because this isn't NFL free agency where you always know exactly when contracts are up. You know exactly when things are signed. You know exactly when they're on the market, and it's everybody at the same time. You don't have that here because they're not in union. They're not employees. They're still students, so they can decide whenever they want. It's interesting because I don't think if anyone sat and waited, they would kick themselves on missing something, but also you could get something better. Is there a group of players that you're thinking of right now, or a team that jumped at somebody and could have had somebody better later on when you came up with this scenario?
Not specifically. I haven't followed other teams and who they're adding beyond the really big names, which those are people you would, like a Caleb Downs, you're going to take if he wants to come, you're going to take him immediately. I'm thinking about the guys that Mizzou got that maybe they spent NIL money on, that if they had known someone else was coming into the portal later, for example, and I'm not, this is just pure speculation, hypothetical. I don't know how much NIL money that Sterling Webb is getting.
Sure.
If they knew that a guy like Simeon Barrow or Dominic Williams was coming in to the portal in a couple months, do they hold that money back to add to what they're going to give to that guy, to a Williams or a Barrow, a guy that is a little more proven on a Power 5, Power 4, Power 2 level
Yeah,
than a guy like Sterling Webb. I'm perfectly happy that Webb is on the roster. This is all hypothetical, but things like that, where you have a guy that is coming up from a low G5 level to SEC versus a guy that's moving much more laterally in terms of their skill level, the skill level that they're playing at.
sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, here's my question. If you want to talk about Mizzou, did Mizzou always want to take 2 running backs out of the portal? They got a 1,000-yard rusher, Marcus Carroll, but then they also turned around and got Nate Knoll out of App State, who's also a 1,000-yard rusher a couple of years ago. Did they mean to get 2? Did you have to spin like you got 2, or did you spin like you got 1? It's, again, questions we can't answer because we don't know the math. I do wonder, what the benefits of waiting are, both on the team side and on the player side. Because you can't really do that in the pros. You can't slow roll it. Again, all knowledge is open out there, and the timelines are the same for everybody. And this is where you get into the tampering claims, which are baloney. These aren't employees. There's no tampering. But at the same time, sure, there's maybe contact that happens that shouldn't happen, or you wouldn't be pleased with, and that happens across the board. So stop crying about it. I just, Nick Saban got out there on the NFL draft and kept, he's talked about how the Toledo corner refused to get into the portal. And you're like, yeah. I mean, coaches have their favorites. Coaches, I know that there's so much that a head coach has to do, let alone, a position coach or even just a director of player personnel. But they're not dumb. They know who these players are. There's thousands of them, and they got word of mouth. It's a pretty small circle of people who are involved in this sort of thing. People talk. They know what they're looking for. If you are truly shopping with a blind eye, like, oh, I don't know, we'll just see what we can pick up today. Like you've screwed up. If you're waiting because you were told that the Toledo corner was going to hit the portal and then he never did, that's another thing, which again, go cry to nobody because you can't do anything about that. But I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. And the fact that defensive tackles, I'm saying they're not worth it, but I don't know how many players are currently making $1 million as a transfer. And the fact that you can do that because you waited until the spring transfer portal to transfer or window to transfer, could ask it and then got it. And not only got it, but got an offer from several different schools, allegedly, and you just got the bid against them. Like, boy, that's a pretty good place to be as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. Play the game you love, get paid $1 billion to do it. Like, heck yeah, man, that's great. So I don't know. Again, everything is so early. Anyone who tells you for sure this is how things are going to be is just full of crap. And I am not saying I know how this is going to go. It's just something that I'm monitoring because you hear about the asking price, the alleged asking price, and go, wow, I can think of other players that want to do that too. So something to keep in mind. Although, let's just take a second. Eli Drinkwitz does a bang-up job in the transfer portal. I know he didn't get these 2 guys, but like, my faith isn't shook. Are you still feeling confident in his ability to recruit the portal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're a highly ranked portal class this year. He's brought in really productive guys the last 2 years. He's brought a guy, we got a 3rd round draft pick this year who was one of his first portal adds to the roster. And, so he can do it well. I mean, if they had brought nobody else in except for Caden Green, Marcus Bryant, and maybe McClellan on there, just those 3 guys by itself, and it would be a bang up class. And then add on your Zion Young, your Sterling Webb, the 2 running backs. I mean, he's great. He's great at it. He has the NIL to make it work. I mean, we can't ignore that. And so thank you, donors that are generously providing that. But it's 2 parts. I mean, it's the money, but it's also selling a good player the vision of the program and showing them, hey, this is what we've done. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do with you. And here's a little cash to wet your beak. Yeah. And he's really good at it.
Yeah. Well, he talked about the revenue sharing piece a couple of minutes ago. And I know that's been a little bit of the talk of the town. And I know you did like an actual investigative journalism with the capital J on the whole thing. So
That's
I don't know.
overselling it a little bit.
Whatever. Just educate us. Tell us about what you found out about this revenue sharing model, and what do you think does it means for Mizzou?
Sure. So, first off, I'm going to give credit to Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger, former Mizzou beat writer. He's the one who did the real investigative journalism here. I'm just kind of reiterating some of the information that he found out, but then applying it to Mizzou. So, this is a proposed revenue model that the NCAA is in negotiations with the a certain case, and I can't remember that off the top of my head what they're being sued. They're being
House,
sued
right?
by
House.
House, yes, House v NCAA. They're being sued by like everybody. This is one specific case, and they're in negotiations. And one of the proposals that would settle this out of court and probably reduce the amount of money the NCAA would be liable by like $1 billion with a B. So they're hoping they can make something work. This what it would look like, and this has to be agreed upon by all of the presidents and chancellors of all the campuses that make up the NCAA. This isn't just one guy at the top that makes this decision. Anyway, it would come out to basically costing each school in the NCAA, or at least each Power Four school, $300 million over the course of 10 years. That's a lot of money. Breaking it down to more kind of annual cost, there's three different parts of the proposal where that would increase the cost for schools like Mizzou. So first it'd be, and the biggest piece would be an allowable revenue distribution where schools could meet up to a cap. So it'd be kind of like a salary cap in the NFL or the NBA, where whatever that number is, and it would be set between somewhere between 17 and 22 million dollars a year per school, and they'd be able to take that money and distribute it. And at this point, it doesn't look like there's any real set rules for how they would distribute it, who they would distribute it to. It's kind of unclear as to whether Title IX would require them to give half of that money to women's athletes and half of it to men's athletes. It's a little, from what I've read and heard, it seems like Title IX might not be in play here, because that's more about equal participation and equal opportunity as opposed to equal revenue. So they'd be able to take that money, distribute it however they want, which probably would end up being, they would give, up to $22 million a year to their football team and probably their basketball team as well, split up among however many athletes that is, 100-ish. And I'm sure the star wide receiver, the star quarterback is going to get more than the star or than the third string tackle. But they'd be able to the schools would be able to directly pay athletes. Now, this is something that a lot of people have been calling for a really long time. It would completely wipe away the amateur model that the NCAA is working under, at least for the revenue sports, which is, let's be honest, has been a joke for a long time. So the schools would be able to pay from the TV money that they're getting, from the ticket sales money that they're getting, from the T-shirt sales that they're getting, give that money directly to the athletes. And that cap would be up to 22 million, as I said, probably a little less than that, but maybe 20-ish million per year. That's a lot of money. Then beyond that, at least $2 million per school would be withheld by the NCAA from their annual distribution of revenue. Every year, the NCAA gives schools a lot of money based on mainly they make most of their money from the March Madness basketball tournament. In the past, it's mainly been the men's tournament that's made the money. The women's tournament is becoming very profitable now. As this past year, they made a whole bunch of money. So in the past, the NCAA has distributed a lot of that money to the schools. They will, for the next 10 years, if this goes through, withhold 2 million of that per school. So 2 million over 10 years, that's 20 million per school that's being withheld. So that's just money that they're not getting. Finally, this would allow schools to increase the number of scholarships that they give up to about $10 million per year in scholarships, more than they currently give. So each sport in the NCAA has a set number of scholarships that they are allowed to distribute each year. For football, it's 85. For basketball, I believe it's 15 or 13, 15, something like that for basketball. So for those sports, they basically you fill your whole roster with scholarship players. Now you can have some walk-ons there too that they never play anyway, but your whole roster is basically built with scholarship athletes. Other sports is not the case. So baseball, they have a roster of 32 players, 35 players. They only get 11.7 scholarships to split up among all those players. Same with softball. Softball is like 12 scholarships to split up among 30-ish players. Volleyball's like 11 scholarships for 20 players. And I don't even know what track and field, what swimming, how they have to do it, but it's not a full roster's worth of scholarships. This would allow schools to give us, they would basically increase those scholarship caps so that they could fill out their whole roster. If an LSU who already gives a ton of, or pays a ton of money for baseball, if they wanted to give 35 scholarships to 35 players, full scholarships to fill out their whole roster, they could do that. They would just have to cap their spending at the $10 million additional per year. So added all up together, that ends up being, over the course of 10 years of the settlement, $300 million. Now that number would go down once the NCAA stops withholding that $2 million. So after 10 years, the schools would start getting that $2 million back. But I'd imagine that distribution cap, that salary cap, probably would do nothing but would increase based on, ultimately they're going to have to. The athletes are going to unionize. That's a little bit farther down the road. They're going to have to do some collective bargaining there. But I'm sure that number would increase over the years. But it's a lot of money. Bottom line is it's a lot of money, and it's really not. It's a lot of money that Mizzou doesn't really have, at least not the way that they're currently operating their athletic department. So for reference, last year, in the year 2023, Mizzou reported that they made 140. We'll round up. We'll call it $142 million in revenue, and they spent $141,999,999. So, according to their shaky bookkeeping, they made one more dollar than they spent. So if you add in an additional, $30 million a year of expenses, because this isn't increased revenue, this is purely increased expense. That's a 21% increase on that budget of $142 million than they're paying right now. Now, where does that money come from? That's a great question. That's one that Laird Veach gets paid the big bucks to figure out. They can cut sports, which would be terrible, but that they may be looking at that. Another thing which I didn't mention is schools aren't obligated to meet the salary cap, if you will. They could choose to not pay any money in revenue distribution. This would just allow them to do so if they wished. Now, if Mizzou wants to be competitive in any sport, especially the revenue sports where most of this money is going to get spent, they're going to have to spend it. So that's it's kind of not really a question that money needs to get spent for the athletes, or they're not going to have a team to field, short of walk-ons that would rather play for free at Mizzou than play for free at Lindenwood, right? So I mean that's kind of what we're looking at. And playing in the SEC, everybody else in the SEC is going to meet that cap and probably exceed it because it's the SEC. Let's be honest. And so it's a lot of money. I don't really know what the future holds with it, but it's kind of bleak, to be honest.
Yeah. I hesitate to jump to any conclusions on this. It's so tough to tell what the fallout for this sort of thing is going to be. Have you ever looked at the House case? Do you know what they are alleging or what's stemming from this?
It's it's basically just that the NCAA has illegally withheld revenue from athletes that have earned it, from my understanding. Now, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm way oversimplifying it. But another part of this settlement would also include back pay to former athletes who wouldn't, who haven't had the chance to make money off of this. That money would not be coming from the schools. Well, I say that $2 million that the NCAA is withholding, that's where that money goes,
No.
is to the back pay.
So yeah, this I know a lawyer, married to one. This case, I don't know if you remember this, but this was filed in July 15th of 2020. Okay, Grant House was a Arizona State swimmer, I think is what it was. And like there's two other plaintiffs on there. I think there's like a Illinois football player, maybe an Oregon basketball player, something like that. But if you go back to 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, they sued and they got the judge who did Alston, which opened up this whole thing. And I think O'Bannon too, basically saying that the NCAA was restricting their ability to earn revenue on their name, image, and likeness. And wouldn't you know it, a month later, the NCAA got together and said, oh, what if we let them do that? Huh. And then at that time, July 2021, you'll remember if you followed any college football player, and we all follow our Mizzou ones, they all tweeted out something almost the exact verbatim language. July 1st of 2021, I am now open for opportunities to earn revenue off of my name, image, and likeness. They all put it out there at the same time because this lawsuit hit. NCAA went, oh, crap, and then instituted something for the following year to try and make it go away. But that's where the back pay comes from, right? That's why this whole thing is still around. I'll be honest. If this is all schools have to do, this $300 million, if that's all they have to pay, worth it. Worth it. 40 years of TV dollars and revenue for nothing, and you just got to pay back $300 million over 10 years. Boy, do it again in a heartbeat. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to what they earn. Both the NCAA, the individual schools. Clemson's got a freaking waterfall in their football facilities. Worth it. This is not punitive at all. Now I know it's gonna make the the spreadsheets are gonna be a little tight for the next decade. Worth it. Absolutely worth it. They would do it again too. I just think of all the players that you know from growing up that had to be paid under the table and therefore were limited in what they could earn. 300 million.
Yeah, it's not punitive at all. It's also, I mean, based on the revenue sharing model that's being proposed, that 300 million after 10 years, I mean, a lot of that's going to be continued on as it should be, but that revenue distribution is not going to end after 10 years. It's going to continue on into perpetuity. That's just what that proposal would do. They would fulfill their obligations, contractually if they made this settlement to get after 10 years. But the NCAA after 10 years is not going to, or if the NCAA is even still around in 10 years, not going to then all of a sudden say, no more revenue distribution anymore, because then they're just going to be back right on this exact same issue again, and then and have to do it all over again. So that money is continuing on in perpetuity. It's going to happen eventually, whether it's with a settlement here in this case or somewhere else down the road. The only money that is not continuing in perpetuity is the $2 million withholding per year. So that $20 million, which is when it comes down to it, that's the punitive damages that each school is paying, $20 million for the decades and decades of not paying their players. So that is kind of a joke overall. But it's something athletes can get a little bit of money for the money they didn't make down the road. Ultimately, who's it going to hurt though? It's probably going to hurt. It's not going to hurt the administrators. It's going to hurt future athletes
every time.
Future athletes that are not playing revenue sports. It's going to ultimately limit the number of opportunities that there are for your golfers, for your volleyball players, for your softball players, for your wrestlers, the people that want to earn scholarships playing real sports. Because now are the big guys, is Ohio State going to cut any sports? No, they're not. They're going to meet the cap. They're going to pay the $10 million extra of scholarship money to which is great. That's awesome. That's more scholarships for more athletes. But Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, that's the very tippy top, as opposed to the 200, 300 NCAA schools that are going to that probably are going to have to cut. I say that the ones at the very bottom probably aren't going to be doing any of this stuff, so they probably aren't going to cut anything. But Mizzou level, mid-tier, power conference level, that's where those athletes are going to where sports might get cut, or where scholarships aren't at best scholarship numbers aren't increased because they can't afford to do so. They might just keep baseball at 11.7 scholarships because they can't afford to do more. So that's kind of best case scenario. But I think it'll probably result in a lot of schools who want to keep up in football, who want to keep up in basketball, taking it out on the little guy, if you will, and cutting sports.
Well, I mean, we are very aware of what the board of curators, who actually calls the shots, we know what they like. They like football, and they sometimes like basketball. So those two sports are fine. We got nothing to worry about that. It's everything else. So, and maybe that's exactly the way they want it. Maybe they do like the fact that, hey, you just got to maintain a football program and a basketball team and call it a day. Call it a day right there. That's all you got to do. That's probably music to their ears, frankly. So, yeah, if you like Mizzou wrestling, if you like Mizzou softball, if you like Mizzou volleyball, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think there might be some culling across the nation of these are the programs we care about. Which, you could, if you want to be, a team out west and become a volleyball school, here's your chance to do it. It's probably pretty cheap, and there's going to be a lot of players that are on the market that can't go to the school that they want to go to. Well, and play the sport, right? So I don't know. Very weird. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but yeah, as you outlined it, you can see the fallout, a potential fallout of what could happen. They could really change a lot of the landscape of college sports, which is so funny because we always advocate. Well, I'm not going to speak for everybody. I, probably you, have advocated for player rights and the ability to earn money and just be like any other student. And the fallout is, well, they're going to take it out on the players. You wanted these opportunities. Well, here's your punishment for that. It's like you let a business go so long, get comfortable that they get used to that sort of thing and they don't want to change. And so, yeah, the price goes down to the people who didn't ask for it in the first place, which sucks. But we'll see. You want to finally talk about some football, like some actual football? Not that there's a whole lot going on other than missing recruits, but we're basically in the summer session. Spring's done. Portal is, well, there's still guys in there, but no one else is getting in. Rosters are basically finalized for the most part. You're going to have some trickles here and there, but it's mostly done. So now that we have our team set up and we're in summer, this is the danger zone for football, right? This is where they're in classes, but there's not a lot going on. The coaches aren't over your shoulder 24/7. You got a little bit more agency in what you can do on your day-to-day, and that's where college age kids do college age stuff. So you got a piece coming out and you called about your summer wishes, just things that you wish happened this summer from a team standpoint for the Mizzou football team. Let me hear your first one. What's your first wish that will occur over this summer?
Well, the first wish I had, we had discussions about it here, and so I think I might be changing my mind a little bit. So I'm going to jump over. My initial wish was, can we add one more defensive line transfer? Doesn't have to be a starter level guy, but we've talked about it. You've talked me down a little bit. I think we're fine there. My first wish is that Mizzou football athletes partake in substances in states where they are legal. That's my first wish.
I like that.
Do things that are legal in places that they are legal, and don't do things that are illegal in places that they are illegal. That's my first wish. And if they're all here in Missouri, working out, having fun, don't go home. You don't need to go home to Texas. You don't need to go home to Illinois. You can stay right here. You don't need to go home to Kansas. Just stay right here. This is home. Mizzou is home.
Right. Talk about it all the time. I'm going home with the tiger head. Yeah, stay here. You can do fun things here. You can do legal fun things here with other people, by yourself, however you want to do it. Yeah. That's always my wish. I don't want to read a single name in the news for 4 months unless it's, he visited some sick kids in the hospital and signed some jerseys. I'll read that story 10 times out of 10.
Or broke a powerlifting record or something.
There you go. Right. Squatted his ass off. Just 1,000 pounds through the butt. Right. Like he's doing it. He's a squat champ. Like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Anything else? I don't want to hear it. So yeah, that's always my number one. Just get through the summer. Don't make any news. That's all I want. That's a good wish. What's your second wish?
My second wish is kind of still on the recruiting trail. I want Drinkwitz to land at least one offensive playmaker this summer. Now I'm very happy with the commits we have so far. We have Matt Zollers, quarterback, and which I chatted with Quentin Corporeal on here when we first got him committed, thinking that we got Zollers. That's going to hopefully open the floodgates. We'll start getting lots of commitments. We did. They were all defensive players, which is great. You got to have good defensive players. We did get Jack Lang, 4-star offensive lineman, but there's no offensive skill players besides Zollers, of course, that have signed on yet. And I think the next step to kind of get the next wave of recruits coming in is getting an exciting playmaker on board. We had the wave of 6 straight guys right after Zollers committed. Let's get a receiver, a running back, somebody that is exciting and is flashy and can fire off some tweets about coming home and all that fun stuff and get the momentum back going. A couple of guys that are options: Jamarian Parker from St. Louis, running back from Cardinal Ritter. I believe he's the one who was committed to Arkansas for a while and then decommitted. It looks like 247 is kind of trending him towards Nebraska, but we're right there with him. Hopefully we can convince him that Nebraska is just a really boring place to go. But he would be exciting. Javen Boggs is another guy whose name has been kind of thrown around a lot. Receiver from Florida, and it seems like he and Matt Zollers have been tweeting and retweeting each other quite a bit in recent weeks.
Social media drama, yeah.
So that would be exciting as well. He's down in Florida, so one of those guys, or it could be someone else. But somebody that's exciting that we can say, okay, we got a quarterback, we got our wide receiver for the future lined up, we got our left tackle for the future lined up. We're burning with gas right now.
My second wish is that I wish that current Oregon head coach Dan Lanning got onto called in press conference and said that Kansas City barbecue is trash and that Emos is just cracker butthole, because I need him out of Missouri. Get out. Stop recruiting our boys. Dan Lanning is a Missouri boy. He's from Kansas City. And in some alternate timeline, he's probably Missouri's head coach, frankly. But he has got the connections. And he is just poaching blue chippers out of the show me state, taking them to the West Coast, those hippies in Oregon. And I'm not about that. We've got enough people poaching Missouri. We had to deal with, Robert Steeples at Notre Dame and then at LSU picking off all the Catholic kids from St. Louis. We've had to deal with, now all the power teams like, oh wait, Missouri's good at making football players. Like, we've dealt with that. And now we got a playoff contending conference champion, Big Ten team, Oregon, coming in, just taking our dudes. Get out. Say something stupid. Say something blasphemous. Say Harry Truman was a hack. Okay. Tell me Scott Joplin could actually see. I don't know. Just give me something so blasphemous and so stupid that the state of Missouri just goes, no, get the heck out. And he stops recruiting with such. You take that back.
Hey. Not just to speak it into existence. Yeah, Oregon took our a really exciting receiver, Isaiah Mosey.
Yep.
De'Ari Hill, running back from was East St. Louis. I mean, just right or
Yeah.
Belleville, somewhere right across the river. Guys that easily could have been Tigers, and might still be one day. Well, we don't know, but it's not over till it's over, and even when
Yeah.
it's over, it's still not over these
Yeah.
days. Yeah, so it'd have been nice to have said that those guys are signed on for the Tigers, but they, oh well, move on to greener pastures.
Yeah. Look, man, it's true. And I said it in the Beasley piece I wrote about the linebacker who committed to Michigan, then committed to Mizzou. You don't get him out of high school, you get him out of the portal. It's a different world, baby. Yeah. What's your third? I guess your last. I guess we're doing genie rules. What's your third wish?
My third wish is I wish that Ryan Russell, who's our executive, I don't know what his official title, executive director of athletic performance. I hope this summer. I wish he beefs up the boys. The boys need to be beefed up. Specifically, looking at the linebackers, Chuck Hicks, Tristan Newsom, a little light in the ass, as they say. They've played well. They've produced. I'm just I just love. Just give me 5 more pounds of butt. 5 more pounds of beef in the butt on both of those guys. Corey Flagg. Both Hicks and Flagg are 230 pounds. Newsom's 222, I think. Let's get that up to 235 for those guys and 230 for Newsom.
Yeah.
Let's make him a sandwich. Make him a couple sandwiches. Get him in the weight room. Get him a milkshake or two. And if other guys want to get bigger, stronger, faster as well, that'd be great. But I think the linebackers could put on a few pounds.
There was a Virginia Tech player a couple of years ago who tweeted out his daily intake, like the food that he ate on an individual day that he had to eat every day to like make whatever. I'm sure it was something paltry like 295, like such a low ask of the modern college football player anymore. And like the number of Uncrustables he ate was like 8 or 9 in a single day. If you don't know what those are individually wrapped sandwiches without the crust. Like you just pop it open, stick it in your mouth and go. Like PB&J and stuff like that. I remember Max Copeland when he was starting in 2013 on the offensive line. He was the walk-on from Montana. He continues to be my favorite Missouri player of all time. But he, I think, naturally carried himself. He was like 6'3", and his normal like fighting weight was like 220. And he had to get up. The highest he could get was like 292, and he did this by setting an alarm and waking up twice per night at like 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and consuming an entire chicken. Just boiled and then eat the whole damn thing and then go back to bed. And I'm just like,
oh my God.
What? How is this possible?
That probably wasn't even that helpful because I'm sure the amount of calories he burned just digesting 2 chickens while sleeping just counteracted whatever he was trying to.
Look, I am not a nutritionist, famously not one. Okay. I don't run a strength and conditioning program. I have no idea what you can eat and not eat to make yourself healthy and strong. I mean, look at me. I'm a tub of lard. I have no idea about this stuff. I do feel like waking up at 2 a.m. to consume a whole chicken every night is dubious.
It's dedication. It's dedication, if nothing else. And unfortunately, he was keeping Tyson Foods in business, and they just turn around and give that money back to Arkansas. So
lame.
Eat something else. Let's eat what Mizzou invented the fake meat. What is it called? Beyond Meat. That was a Mizzou product. Eat Beyond Meat.
There you go.
Beyond Meat.
Do your school proud. MIZ fake meat. That's what we're doing. Yeah, I like it. That's good. Also, Tiger Tracks ice cream. Also very delicious. Just buy the pint, baby. Just consume. So yes, more ass on our boys. I like it. What's my third wish? Okay. So we know Eli Drinkwitz likes to talk. And we know he talks more when he feels good, when he feels bad about his team, because he's trying to get headlines. And he talks a little less when he feels good. But good or bad, he's good for something that grabs headlines. He's always good for one. Here is what I would like. I would like for him to say something antagonistic that he then gets to back up during the football season. We did not really get that this year. And it's smart. You don't want to put a target on yourself. And anytime he does talk about a team specifically, usually Arkansas. The one time he did that, he lost. So I get that this is opening up a little bit of a risky thing here. But I do want him to like talk trash on. Oh, I don't. Should we just Brent Venables? Should we just get that big burly nerd and stuff him in a locker by our tubby little nerd that's losing his hair? Like Brent Venables, I think, is a nice guy. I have no idea. Never worked with the guy. He is such a football freakazoid. Like he does not seem like he can just interact with people. And I want our fast talking, trash talking little nerdy coach to say something and then beat him that season. That's all I want. Talk trash in the offseason and back it up. That's all I want.
Oklahoma is a great one because while I don't think Brent Venables will even hear about it because I don't think he like watches the news or reads. No. So, yeah, he probably wouldn't hear about it. But Oklahoma fans are really easy to piss off.
Yeah, they are,
and get under their skin. So if Drinkwitz can get under, I mean, he'll find it very easy to do. If he can get under their skin, get them mad, and then beat them on November 9th, that would be, I agree, that would be just perfect. Just perfect.
Wait, was he chirping about Arkansas as a school the other day? I think he was in like St. Charles.
He was, it was one of the traveling coaching shows or whatever, but he was saying he was wishing the softball team good luck because they were playing Arkansas in the SEC tournament and say we beat Arkansas in everything that we do or something like that.
Yeah,
which unfortunately isn't entirely accurate. No. But it's accurate in football and it was accurate in that specific game against Arkansas.
There you go. That's all that counts, man.
That's all that counts.
50% of the time, he's right 100% of the time. It's all good. So yeah, that would be my last wish. Say something and then back it up. That would be really nice. Okay. I think that's it. We got an hour, almost an hour. Thank you for tuning in live with us. We appreciate you all stopping in. Nathan Hurst, we're going to get out of here, but let's one piece of wisdom, one news item, one good thing to say. What would you like to say before we get the heck out of here?
Just do legal things in legal places. Don't do illegal things in illegal places. This goes beyond Mizzou athletes. I think we can all take from that. If it's legal, you can do it. Don't drink and drive. Never drink and drive.
Yeah.
Do whatever you're going to do at home or Uber.
For God's sakes, Uber.
That's what I got for you.
What I would have given for Uber in college. But those are stories for another day. For now, that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hearst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.